Hello and welcome to another Genshin version review. Today we're going to be looking at the 6.6 or Luna 7 version. New version is almost out, which means we have had the time to experience everything this version has given us, and as such we can review it. 6.6 had no new areas to explore, but we got the last two acts of the Song of the Welkin Moon Archon Quest series. We had our expected main event, and then the Stygian reset and minor events. There were some very interesting things that happened throughout this version that churned up a lot of stuff inside the community related to the events and whatnot, so maybe we'll mention something about those once we get there. First is always going to be Archon quests and exploration, so I guess shall we begin with the video proper? So, I'm not going to go into extreme detail on what happened in the Archon quest. I will give my general opinion first, and then any major or minor notes that I had while experiencing it. Major usually being any story-related stuff, and minor usually means bugs or such problems. As such, well, my overall opinion of the quest isn't negative. There were a lot of really nice and interesting moments, but, and it's a big but, the pacing of this quest was utterly atrocious. The quest takes on average 6 to 7 hours compared to the 3 to 4 hours of the other Nod-Krai acts, and being completely honest, those extra hours are completely useless to the quest. There is so much padding and unnecessary dialogue and whole segments in the two acts that make the story horrible to experience. I weep for those that check every detail in the quests and make them play on auto. It would easily take you days to finish the two acts. For me, it's also such a stark difference because at the same time the version released, I got back into Persona 5X. And I had left decently early, so for those that know, I had to do Chapter 3 of the story and the recently released first half of Chapter 4. And wanna know what? Both these quests, especially 3, are very long, but in my entire playtime of these story quests, I never felt fatigued or bored or anything, because the pacing and the content was spot on all the entire time. So comparing that to, at the time, recently played Genshin Quest, I saw just how much bloated the acts were, especially on fucking stupid gameplay segments. Like, come on, did we really need a segment of Skara, Seno, and Sethos fighting intelligent constructs that take 3 times the time to kill because these characters don't fucking work with each other, and then they make you fight fucking Asimon and they put in a Ranara shooting dendro projectiles just so maybe Seno and Sethos might deal some damage. Fuck Skara, I guess, completely. Then there's the Al-Haytham and Kaveh thingy, which just takes long because the characters and things on the board move very slowly, and let me tell ya, I really hope you like Kaveh because what is easily more than half of the quest is just them. So if you don't like Kaveh and Al-Haytham, I'm deeply sorry. Again, they're on the screen and in basically every part of this quest for more than half of it. Half also of the contents of these acts could have been axed and nothing would change. And that goes for small, cute interactions. I'm not including those when I say half of the contents, which goes to show you just how badly stuffed with shit these acts were. My next complaint for this is, why the fuck is this quest included in the Song of the Welkin Moon? It has nothing to do with it until Dotore's segment appears. And he does nothing, by the way. He could have easily not existed. Nothing changes about Dotore's story because we got to see this segment of his. Dotore could have easily just vanished right then and there in Nod-Krai, and then maybe we could have gotten some extra stuff while in Snezhnaya, and that would have been it. We got some Pantalone stuff, but you could include most, if not all, of the relevant Pantalone and Dotore stuff in Snezhnaya. There is nothing that ties the other acts of Song of the Welkin Moon to this. If this was titled and included in the Sumeru acts, which kind of was if you go from the very first story trailer that they released for Genshin, right, with the whole same title, then I would have no problem. And actually, it has even come back to fuck with MiHoYo, because the new stuff in 6.7 is tied, actually, to Song of the Welkin Moon in a pretty decent manner, but because they filled their 10 acts quota with these last 2 acts, they now treat the 6.7 stuff as a world quest. And, oh, it's voiced, because of course it's voiced. It's basically an Archon quest. Holy shit, and if they didn't fuck up in 6.6, it would have not been a problem. So now if you look back at Song of the Welkin Moon, you start all good until you reach the very end where all of a sudden you're in Subaru doing completely unrelated things to all of the other acts. And because the 6.7 story is not going to be included, jumping main story-wise from Song of the Welkin Moon to the Snezhnaya Archon story will leave you with a bunch of questions because the world quest is not included in the Song of the Welkin Moon. What a stupid mess that is so easily avoided. I really don't know if I want to do the overall Archon Quest review now or after 6.7, because doing it now will leave a giant hole of story, but Song of the Welkin Moon has officially ended here in 6.6. I can't do it. I cannot review Song of the Welkin Moon because it's not done, technically. But through MiHoYo's bullshit, it is. Holy shit. Before we move on, by the way, no, the new saved progress thingy does not save the quest from its horrendous pacing and playing experience. This is such a band-aid solution. Instead of making a well-paced quest with the proper amount of content, instead of the bogged slog with non-stop useless dialogue and gameplay, they just slapped a quest progress saved, you can leave if you want, and called it a day. Congratulations. Wow. Oh, shit, actually. Now, hold on. It just dawned on me. Before we move to the events, actually, we have to mention the dumpster fire that was Nicole's quest. Wow, they somehow found a way to one-up Durin's unnecessary, 5 days locked quest and made it progress weekly for fucking 5 to 10 minute segments. You had to wait a whole week to progress and see them. I am deeply sorry to any Nicole fans because this was abysmal. What's next? Like, is the next Hexaday character gonna progress bi-weekly or monthly? Is Alice's quest going to take a whole year to finish? Wow. Just wow, it's insane. Legitimately, how the fuck does MiHoYo always do it, man? They always manage to one-up themselves in the trash. Incredible. Well, after that, we move on to events and Stygian. The main event was placed basically randomly. It could have been placed anywhere on the fucking map, in any nation, and it wouldn't matter. But this time, they chose Inazuma. As for minor events, there was a combat event, and I can't exactly say what it was because it's basically going to reveal everything about it. There's not many details. And then they brought back the shitty forced co-op stuff for PvP, which I never play because they are boring and shit. Also, one of the events is that they tried to make people play Miliastra by making it give you some primos, which, wow. This was one of the things people for some reason were kind of eating each other in the community. One side saying they don't want to touch Miliastra, and then the other saying, just play the DPS damage for 5 minutes and be done. For me, if you can guess, I side on the I never want to even open Miliastra, especially if it means the shitty mannequins will enter my fucking character roster and I have to see them. There is no point in Miliastra being tied to Genshin. Make it a different fucking game. Like I said this also when it first came out. Its only purpose, right the fuck now, is just DPS dummies, and they have created their own bag of stupid discussions on, oh, the character can't reach X DPS on a DPS dummy, which isn't even correct. Who knows if the DPS calculations are correct? And most importantly, you're not in an actual fighting environment against DPS dummies. The enemy doesn't stay still. They also have resistances. They also have mechanics and everything. You can't just put a character in a team in a DPS dummy and call it a day. And then everything else in Miliastra is either dogshit minigames or copies of other games that are completely botched because of the stupid limitations you have. So why not just play the actual games? I have never seen anything that doesn't fit into these two cases. People were hyping a shitty MOBA or some shit that was half the things an actual MOBA has. Plays like shit, you can easily tell from just looking at the footage of it. And then I severely doubt that the creator of it has enough game design knowledge to create a good PvP environment with good characters and whatnot. So just play an actual MOBA with proper matchmaking. And, it simply works compared to this. Oh man, it's insane that people defend what is basically... It was basically bribery. People don't want to interact with Miliastra. They're like, please just get it out of Genshin and make it a separate thing, and then maybe we'll do something. And then MiHoYo's like, I'll give ya money to play it. It's just bribery, but idiots will be idiots and defend it. And it's like, wow. Goodness gracious. I mean, yeah, the people that play Miliastra are people that most likely also play fucking Roblox. And what do you expect? Roblox, the shitty mini games that are just utter garbage. And I mean, let's not talk about all of the other issues. And then if it's not that, it's quite literally carbon copies of games that are popular. Congratulations, but they're done in a Roblox environment, which can make good stuff because it's an actual game engine, but then most of the time it's kids or idiots making those carbon copies because they can't make their own ideas, and then it's botched. What do you expect? Just go pick up an actual game engine. If you do, you do Miliastra, pick up an actual game engine, make a game. Go to itch.io, post it, and maybe even make some money compared to this trash. Anyway, main event, boy, was this also actually a talking point. So the characters in the event were all kids, and since we don't have a single Shota, it was pretty bland looking at all the little girls. I mean, story-wise, it was just uninteresting and boring. Completely uninteresting and boring. They tried to make it sentimental with imaginary friends, and I'm like, listen, man, I've heard two things with imaginary friends. One where it was fine, the other one where the kid was like interacting with ghosts or some shit. So let's not pass the imaginary friends thingy. Anyways, like, they tried to be like, oh, there's a kid inside of you and everything, and I'm like, boy, it was done shittily. Anyways, I was just glad to see my two daughters, Yao Yao and Chichi, interact with each other. That's all I need. I mean, gameplay-wise, it was not better at all as well. There was a 2D platformer with Yuegue, which was utterly brain-dead. It was unfathomably boring, and the stages took like less than a minute. Mario on the fucking NES, no, actually, 1-1 is more interesting than all of the stages in this minigame. And then next was an abysmal try at golf. Ah, yes, let's make golf, but instead of the goal being to, get the ball in the hole in the least amount of strokes, you are forced to land the ball into specific spots or in the course, and the cherry on the cake is that the ball doesn't have actual physics. How the fuck do you make a golf game and have the ball have less physics than the fucking artifacts and weapons that spawn out of the chests? How do you manage that? It was atrocious to play. Anybody even calling this a golf game has not come close to footage of fucking golf, actual golf, or golf video games. Like, seriously, how? How can you be a worse golf game than NES Golf? How did I manage to mention NES games twice in a video, surprisingly? Like, impressive. And I saw, like, people were complaining that this is a shit, this minigame is utter trash. It's boring, shit, has no physics, yada yada. Actually, no, people mentioned the physics and it drove me mad. How the fuck are you talking about golf without mentioning that the ball has no physics? And then people were like, skill issue. And it's like, did anybody in those fucking in discussions about how this minigame is utter trash mention that it was difficult? They never mentioned that. They told you it's boring and ass. And you could even see that people finished the minigame. They know it was trash, and they were like, skill issue. Congratulations, you've shown your absolute retardation. Anyways, then there was Subway Surfers. Only even compared to Subway Surfers, it was much, much slower and boringly easy. Yes, even compared to actual Subway Surfers. Listen, if you want to play an actual game, like if you somehow were kind of interested in this minigame, right? If you want to play an actual game like this shit, that actually is good and it will make your brain work rather than turn it off, pick up any 3D Sonic game, except for Forces. But even it requires more thought than this minigame. Just do that. There's so many momentum, speed, I don't want to call them platformers, and they are way better. Just do that. And last was the forced combat minigame. Not gonna lie, I barely even remember this combat minigame with how ass it was before making this review. You had two teams. One team existed to complete a goal, you know, the classic break shields, trigger a reaction a certain amount of times, you know, the classic stuff. And then another team defeated enemies for points with a buff based on how you did on the first team. The problem, because somehow one always fucking exists, you switched between the two teams mid-fucking battle on a timer, so the pace of the battle was instantly killed when you switched. It wasn't like previous similar combat events or minigames where the stages were separate, so you did your goal one and then you gathered your points on the other stage. No, they decided, let's just make you switch midway through your combat, just break the pace and the flow and everything, and just, wow. Also, getting the required points was piss easy, and getting any amount more amounted to nothing. Required points was like 20k, let's say, and you could easily get 400. Like, come on now. Where's the combat events or combat minigames in main events that were like, hey, you got like a fuck ton more points than the required. Here's a rainbow medal or something, for fuck's sake. I don't even need rewards for Mora and something. Just make the combat interesting, which you don't need to do much on, I'm not gonna lie, but make the combat interesting and then give a fucking bragging rights reward, man. It didn't even have a bragging rights reward. Anyway, and let's not talk about, well, rewards-wise, let's not talk about rewards of the main event with lower primos than all other main events, and the special reward is a barely different skin for a 4-star event weapon that is also ass! Holy shit, are we serious? Are they legitimately competing for who can make the absolute worst event lately? I'm gonna move on. The main event was utter trash. Stygian reset was fine, actually, but the rage I threw this time was insane. No. It was not because of the bosses. The bosses were fine. The Wolf Loca Legend, I had Varka, but the Wolf Loca Legend just needs either Pyro Swirl or Electro Soul to kill its Phantom, although Electro Swirl was extremely jank to use, and also didn't do much damage on the shield compared to Pyro Swirl. It makes sense, but still. The Tulpa just needed a really good Pyro DPS for the most part. There were some other things that you could actually, like, try and do. Like, you'd easily use Overload Flints against the Tulpa if you had Inefa. But yeah, or just use Nahida because of the bullshit mini Tulpas that were non-stop spawning in different sides of the arena. And then the new Watcher boss that needed Vape or mainly Melt because he had much higher HP than the other bosses, so you needed to do as much damage as possible through his mechanic in order to actually even come close to defeating him. Yeah, no, my rage came from the auto-targeting, and anybody that played Arlecchino against the Tulpa most likely shares my rage, right? All the time, I would stick my ass next to the mini Tulpa to hit it with Arle, to kill it, and she would instead target the boss. Other characters also kind of did that, but Arlecchino was just the most obvious, and I think was one of the worst when it came to the shitty auto-targeting. It was unfathomable rage to literally stick yourself right next to the mini Tulpa and then see Arle just swing the scythe on nothing because the boss is that way. Oh my goodness, it legitimately almost broke me. Let's finish the video with the minor events. The combat event I mentioned was basically Sekiro, or recently same style thing I've played would be Where Winds Meet. You had no skills. You know, your classic elemental skill or burst. You had no skills but a parry and then a big damaging ult that you got. You filled up the big damaging ult when you parried, and you had to parry the enemy's attacks to drain their whatever you want to call the stun bar, because that's what it was, a stun bar. The enemy got stunned and then you executed them, dealing a lot of damage. Rinse and repeat until they're dead. With my recent Where Winds Meet experience, I actually aced all of them and got a non-translated message even. How the hell does that get past? How the fuck, like seriously, how the fuck does that get past testing? Anyway, it was okay. Once you learn the pattern of a boss and the parry timings of their attacks, sooner or later, you would pass the stage also perfectly. It just sadly had 3 enemies, though, which made the days between new stages, which was like 1, empty. And then, but most importantly, after the 3 stages, it was just there. It was over and just standing there, doing nothing. You did 3 days, and that's it. That was the entire event. Just no more enemies, no more nothing interesting. Yeah. And then I did not touch the co-op event, because shitty co-op minigames is not the reason I play this game. And I have played some of the co-op events before, and they were all equally ass and boring. So yeah, who could have guessed? A single-player game that is mainly single-player focused with shitty netcode would not work well co-op or PvP, also in minigames that have nothing to do with the main gameplay. Wow. And that was 6.6 or Luna 7. I had somewhat high hopes, especially for the story. If you watch the other version reviews, I mentioned that I was a bit skeptical on how Dotore would be defeated, rather than how he would come back, and honestly, I was disappointed with the opposite. Dotore's reason for, well, the story's reason for Dotore coming back was literally irrelevant. Nothing would matter if he was back or not, and then defeating his segment in Irminsul by destroying it was logical. It was fine, and I mean, and the way that they countered the destruction of Irminsul not fucking destroying the entirety of Teyvat, again, was logical, but again, like, why is Dotore here? He does fuck all. Nothing changes if he's here or not. Anyway, but overall, I just got tired and lost my interest with the story. And also, I really hated the fact it was included as acts of Song of the Welkin Moon, when it has nothing to do with it, and now with 6.7, it came back to bite them in the ass. Events were mostly all ass, and definitely boring, so this version went like nothing important happened. So, next up will be, for videos, the 6.7 Abyss and Majorum Theater reset for July, because I'm not pulling for Sandron, and since I won't have access to Stellar Conduct, I can't also make a video on the buffs. They did say the Cry Traveler was gonna make Stellar Conduct, thank fuck, that's at least something, but yeah, there are some that don't require Stellar Conduct for the buffed characters, but also the buffs are meant to work best in Stellar Conduct teams, and from what I know, they do nothing for the characters' regular teams, as far as I have seen. Nobody has done any calculations or anything that says, hey, this character is now saved for other teams that don't include Stellar Conduct. And yes, I did see the SNES trailer, and I cannot believe that finally my boy Yusuke Kobayashi will be in Genshin. We will be pulling. I don't know if I will skip anybody like I did for Furina, when I skipped Risley and Nuvilette, because I needed a C6 Furina. There was no fucking way I was missing Inori Minase, but Yusuke Kobayashi as well? Oh, fuck. I mean, I will have to follow leaks to see when they plan to release my boy, and he better be able to be paired with Hutao, of course. We have to make that happen. Well, I mean, the main combo definitely will be the Tsaritsa, and she does have Fortuna's voice actress. Hold on, wait. Xiao buffs for Stellar Swirl so we can have Geese and Fortuna. Make it happen. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.